After nearly a decade in the longevity space, I've started to notice a pattern. Smart people making the same 5 mistakes over and over again. And part of the reason is this: longevity has become more complex than ever. There are more tests, more therapies, more supplements, more metrics. You can track your sleep, your HRV, your glucose, your biological age, your inflammation markers. And if you're smart, you can figure out a way to optimize almost anything. But here's the problem. As complexity increases, structure becomes more important. And what I see happening is this: people are taking action without a framework. They're stacking tools without a plan, collecting interventions without building a system. The tools aren't the problem. The problem is that people are using these powerful tools without a clear structure. And the first place that I see that show up is right at the very beginning, before people even get started. The first mistake that I see people making all the time is that they jump into a longevity protocol or therapy without getting tested first. They do things like changing their diet, or they start working out, or doing different exercises. They start adding a bunch of supplements. Maybe they start fasting or taking peptides or doing red light therapy. But they haven't done any testing or measured anything to find out what's going on under the hood. They don't know what their fasting insulin is, what their cholesterol or lipids are. They don't know what their inflammation markers are. They don't know what their testosterone levels are or their thyroid levels. So what are they actually optimizing? What are they trying to improve? If you don't get tested first before jumping into a protocol or therapy, you don't have an actual longevity plan. You just have activity. Longevity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what's appropriate for your physiology. Two people can do exactly the same protocol and get completely different results because their baseline biology is completely different. But they don't know that without getting tested first. Without data, you're just guessing. Or worse, you're copying what works for someone else and hoping that it works for you. Collecting data, getting measured, is what turns longevity from experimentation into strategy. And strategy is what separates random biohacking from a real personalized blueprint. The second mistake I see is skipping the fundamentals. People want to jump straight into the advanced stuff. Peptides, NAD plus infusions, stem cells, exotic protocols. But they haven't mastered the basics. And the basics are really simple. Good nutrition, plenty of exercise, and not just exercise, the right kind of exercise. Getting enough sleep, maintaining good control over their weight, and reducing stress. Nothing replaces those. Here's the honest but brutal truth. If you don't have these under control, no advanced intervention is going to override that. Longevity isn't built from the top down. It's built from the ground up. Advanced tools can enhance a solid foundation, but they can't compensate for a weak one. I see people layering complex therapies onto unstable physiology and then wondering why their results aren't the results they were looking for. Here's the third problem I've noticed. A lot of people exercise. Almost every longevity biohacker I know hits the gym, but they don't actually challenge themselves. They move, they get their steps in, they break a sweat, but they stay pretty comfortable. They don't move into that zone where they're actually feeling challenged, where it's hard. They don't do sprints where they're going all out. They're not lifting heavy. Adaptation doesn't happen when you're comfortable. Your body changes in response to stress. This response is called hormesis. Muscles adapt when they're challenged. Mitochondria respond to a demand. Metabolic flexibility improves when energy systems are pushed. Hormesis is about stimulus. If the stress or the stimulus is too mild, the body has no reason to improve. Here's how it works. When you exercise, you need to go after it so hard that it's challenging, that your body struggles to keep up. Then when you recover, your body adapts so the next time you work out, your body doesn't have to struggle so hard. That's adaptation. Longevity is not completely about eliminating all the stress from your life. It's about applying the right kind of stress intentionally and then recovering from it. Without meaningful stimulus, there's no adaptation. And without adaptation, there's no progression. Okay, another mistake is misunderstanding biological age tests and what they mean. We talked earlier about getting tested. Testing is very important, but you really got to understand what the results actually mean. For example, let's look at blood biomarkers. There's a few biological aging tests that are based off of the result from blood work. These type of tests measure mortality risks. Now, here's what that means. If your blood markers show that you currently have the exact same risk of dying as that of an average 45-year-old person, then the model assigns you a biological age of 45, regardless of your chronological age. And here's the thing to remember. This type of test is based entirely on what's happening right now at the cellular level. And for that reason, these type of tests are very responsive to changes in lifestyle. But that's not the same as a biological age test based off of your epigenetic methylation patterns. These type of tests show a lifetime of wear and tear, of exposure to environmental toxins and poor lifestyle choices. Now, as a result, they're not very responsive at all to recent changes in lifestyle. Then there's functional aging tests. These tests show how well you're actually functioning, how well you're performing, and have nothing to do with blood work. If you're functioning at the same level as someone who's, say, 35, then that's your functional age, 35. Same with cognitive aging tests. These tests are a lot like functional aging tests. They show how well you're functioning cognitively. Now, passive aging tests are a little different. They don't show your biological age. They show how rapidly or how slowly you're aging compared to other people. For example, if in 1 year you only age 9 months compared to other people your age, your pace of aging is 0.75 because 9 months is 75% of 12 months. That's your pace of aging. And that's the reason why you could take 4 different biological aging tests and wind up with 4 very different results. Not because one or more of them is incorrect, but because they're all measuring something different. And different biological processes or different systems age differently. If you don't understand the aging model, then you can't really interpret the result. When people treat a single result as a complete picture of aging, they oversimplify something that's far more complex. A number without context isn't insight. It's just raw, uninterpreted data. The last mistake I see people making is using peptides without understanding how they work. A lot of people know what a specific peptide is supposed to do. Maybe it increases growth hormone or improves recovery. Maybe it reduces inflammation or enhances repair. But very few understand exactly how it accomplishes that, what its mechanism of action is. Peptides are signaling molecules. They send instructions. They're part of your body's cellular communication network. They activate signaling pathways by binding to cellular receptors. They then activate those receptors, and in response, the cell initiates some process. Maybe it starts releasing hormones, or it initiates repair, or it starts remodeling tissue. Maybe it boosts the metabolism, but it starts doing something that it wasn't doing before it received a signal. Okay, so why is this important? There's a hallmark of aging called altered cellular communication, and it refers to the shift in signaling that happens as we age. As we get older, the signaling network starts to unravel. And as these signals become more confused or are downright missing, cellular function starts to drop. Damage begins to accumulate. And the rest, well, you know. Because peptides are signaling molecules, using peptides can restore the communication network. But when you use a peptide, you're not just chasing a single outcome. You're modifying a signaling network. And signaling networks are interconnected. Change one signal and other systems shift. If you don't understand the pathway that you're influencing, then you probably don't understand what other systems you might be impacting. Peptides can be powerful, but using them based only on reported effects without understanding the underlying mechanism is blindly manipulating a complex system. And that can be a mistake. These 5 mistakes show up over and over again. Longevity is complex, and the more complex it gets, the more important it is to approach it thoughtfully. If you want to learn more about the science behind aging, stay current with the research, and be part of an ongoing discussion about how to apply it intelligently, join my free school community, the Longevity Lab. There's a link in the description below, or right here. This is where we go deeper into the biology and the strategy behind all of this. Okay, that's it for me and for this video. I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time.